Science Officer of Original Man Scientific. I'm also known as Magna Cardiac on social media. I am joined by my co-host, Jabril.
Peace and blessings, everyone. Jabril Muhammad, aka Jabrillion Engineer, known as Master Jabs on social media, particularly IG. I'm very excited today because, as you saw, we had a little bit of a hiatus between shows, but had to grind, do a couple of things, and whatnot. But we're back, better than ever, back with a vengeance, and ready to get things started. Make sure to follow us on all of our social media at oldmansci_. That's Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram, as well as go to YouTube and then tune in live right now on OMS TV for today's show. I'm happy and ready to get it started. Thank y'all for tuning in. Let's get it started.
All right, family. So for those of us who are following us on social media, you may have noticed that we changed our design on our promotional material. We did that to signify that this is our first show in over a month. We took a very long hiatus where, like Jabril said, we're back now with a vengeance, and we are looking forward to tonight's guest, who I look up to just in terms of what she's done so far in her medical career, as well as my wife. Dr. Safiyya Shabazz. She is a family medicine physician out of Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. But I'm not going to go any further about her. I'm going to let her do that. Welcome to the show, sis.
Peace. Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum salam, man.
So, as you said, I'm a family physician. I was a chemical engineer first. I think a lot of people think that is such a huge difference or transition, but it really is not when you think about it in the grand scheme of things. I guess that you didn't give me like a format you wanted me to follow for introducing myself, but I have a primary care medical practice here in Philadelphia. I did my training two different places. The first place I started my training after I finished medical school at Penn was at Morehouse Family Medicine in Atlanta. And I ended up moving back home and finishing my residency here in Philly at the University of Penn. Worked there for a couple of years before leaving for an industry position, actually at one of the Johnson & Johnson family of companies, which was my first job out of college before I even went to medical school. So I guess maybe we could touch on not burning bridges if you wanted to at some point. Where, my experience before was part of what let that be an opportunity for me. But I decided after a couple of years that I actually like being a clinician, and I ended up hanging out my shingle, so to speak, and starting my private practice in 2010. And we have, a pretty large panel of patients. To be honest, I don't even look to see like exactly what number of patients I have. I would say about 2,500, 3,000 patients that would be active patients. And, right now we're in a period where there's a lot of new people joining the practice. I relocated the practice in November 2016. And with that comes, some new people. Most of my patients actually stay with me though. But I have a family, husband, college student, 10-year-old, the whole bit. So it's a busy life, but a blessed one.
Awesome. So at what point in your life did you realize that you wanted to be a doctor and that medicine was medicine with the rest of your life?
It's interesting because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do even starting college, but I did have an inclination or a thought that I might want to pursue medicine as a career, which is one of the reasons why I settled on chemical engineering as a major, because I knew that I could use that as a platform. I could work as a chemical engineer, I could do something else, or if I decided to, I had most of the prerequisites if I was gonna then apply to medical school. And one of my mentors, who's since passed away, she said, "Oh yeah, you tried to do other things," but I always knew you would be a doctor. And I give that advice to a lot of people who say they want to pursue medicine. Like, if there's something else you could do and be happy, you probably should do it. It's just a really long road. It's not a glamorous thing getting to that point, and even when you think about, oh, when I just get to this point, when I graduate from this, or when I finish this step, then it's all going to be good. But it just changes. It's not like the hard work goes away. So if you're not really passionate about it or dedicated to it, you probably should do something else, because you're not going to be happy. In fact, there's this woman, apparently, like, a lot of doctors kill themselves. And I can probably see how that can happen to a lot of people, but especially if you're just really not passionate about it, and yet you take the beating of the career, then it's not, it's not valid. So I guess when I was sure was when I signed on the dotted line, and that in my first class. I didn't know the first thing about being a doctor, though. I really didn't. I thought the plan was in. I'm like, add renal, it's on the kidney. I'm like, oh, I didn't know.
Right.
So,
bro, you guys,
when you look into the field of medicine, particularly those who hold the title of being medical doctors, there's various types, right? For varying age groups, or like, parts of the body, things that like that. So, like, what was it that really led you to want to be a primary care physician? Like, what is it about the kind of the, not necessarily the everyday individual, but that span of age, those types of people that really drew you to that versus, like, I don't know, a neurosurgeon, or like, specializing with infants or things of that nature?
Right. And it's interesting because sometimes I joke that my dad would be really annoyed, because I remember when I was getting ready to finish my undergrad degree, he was like, oh yeah, well, I told Aunt Marge that you got this job in Japan, and your biotechnical whatever, which I did have a concentration in biotechnology, but I think logically, I originally set out when I was working, my first job out of college, I was working in skincare, developing skincare products for Johnson & Johnson. And I originally said, well, you know what, maybe I'll be a dermatologist. And then I changed to, well, maybe I'll be a cardiologist, because that's kind of like chemical engineering, blood flowing through pipes and things. And
Right.
I'm sure, that would translate. But in the end, I think the logical part of my brain as an engineer led me to realize that if I really was trying to have the biggest impact on people's health, I wanted to see them before they needed a cardiologist. Because that's where you have the most opportunity to make a difference. And some part of that too is being indecisive and not wanting to get to a point where I say, oh, well, I don't take care of men, or I don't take care of children, or I don't take care of women. I can't ask, don't ask me about that, because I don't know about that. So I like having a broad set of skills and expertise. And, there's definitely a value in people who take one part of that and make that their entire focus. You do need both, but I think there also is a lot of value in someone who has a broad interest, and it's easier for me to have or take a holistic view of someone's health a lot of times when I know their whole family. Like, I understand the whole dynamic happening in their household, and it's really a blessing to me when I'm able to, kind of impact the health of a family as a family, and say, well, hey, I noticed your, 12-year-old daughter, she's picking up weight, but honestly, you guys really could stand to, make some changes too, and make some household changes. So I think that's really what led me to primary care. I didn't take advantage of any type of loan repayment program or anything like that, although I would say that being fortunate enough to have scholarships for medical school, which made my debt burden minimal in comparison to my classmates, was part of what allowed me to even consider something like primary care. That's one of the lower paid specialties. It probably wouldn't have been an option if I had $500,000 in debt. Like some people are finishing medical school with that kind of debt, and it really just isn't realistic for them to pursue a career path that's not one of the higher paying fields. And in fact, that actually, from my understanding, a close friend of ours, he actually did a family medicine residency, but he didn't really want to do that, but that was what opportunity was available. But he had so many loans, he was like, this isn't going to work for me. So he actually retrained, did a whole different residency in something that was higher paying. And so I'm grateful for that I had even the flexibility to be able to make that decision. Although I put myself on the 30-year repayment program, so I don't know if that was wise or not. But I don't regret it. They'll get it when they get it.
That's right. That's right. You lifted something key. I think it's a similar thought process to primary school teachers.
Right.
It's like when you are able to impact a child in those developmental stages, they're less likely, if you are a good teacher, you're able to really impact them and kind of gather that attention. They're less likely to develop certain, habits toward, or like thought process toward learning that you may get in 13, 14, a secondary school, tertiary school. So it's almost like trying to head it off and really start families off with like healthy lifestyle early.
Right.
And going kind of back to, as this is very sensitive to me too, or like close to home for me, your engineering background. Speaking of engineering as basically a very, very key endeavor when it comes to critical thinking, how has that background kind of assisted you in the medical realm, just dealing with people, running your practice, and just kind of living your life in the medical field?
I'll say the first thing that being an engineer helped me with, just on a very practical level, is having a holistic way of looking at problems, where I think that it made it a lot more easy for me to even pass the entrance exams, like to do well on the entrance exams. I could look at the question and see the question behind the question, because that's what we're trained to do, is to start to put together, like, how are you going to solve this problem? And I don't think that's something that every scientific background field is trained to do. And so just even on a practical level, I think it helped me score higher on the MCAT.
Right.
And even in the course of study, learning more, I was never a memorizer. I needed to understand how the whole thing worked, and that was going to help me know it, as opposed to just like memorizing. And there are certain parts of what you need to learn that is from just memory, and I would struggle with those things, because I feel like through the course of becoming an engineer and learning how to work those problems and solve the problems, you learn how to take everything you know and start to put it together to solve a problem. And you use that a lot in medicine, because I think breaking down, and not everybody wants to be told like they're wrong, but in trying to deconstruct people's pattern of thinking that tends to cause them to persist in unhealthy habits, and getting to the root of why they think that way and how they could think of it another way. And even from a business perspective, really always trying to focus on the system. If we make a mistake, I'm really trying to understand how was the mistake made, and how can we set up a system so that it doesn't rely on an individual remembering, or always rely on an individual person to be particularly stellar, but the system helps to move you through the process in a way that it's difficult to make a mistake.
That's awesome. I feel like every time you answer a question, it kind of leads into something else. So obviously you're very, very well qualified. I've seen this firsthand. We went to the same school. Shout out Penn. No. But just on after the knowledge base, like it's clear that you know what you know. When you're dealing with a patient, what is the second most, in your opinion, important thing when having a practice or dealing with a patient, trying to like get them from point A to point B after kind of knowing what you know? Is there like a soft skill that you feel like is most important after that, or something else?
Yeah, absolutely. I'm sure there are lots of people who are really skilled in what they do, but if in the end, my interactions with people are, 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes, if it's a really long visit, but they have, the whole rest of their day, week, life to live. So you have to sell to them your idea. You have to get people to be motivated to even believe you. Like, what is fact isn't necessarily the most important thing. And
right.
I struggle with that because I tend to be a very logical person. So, I mean, there are times when I want to tell people, like, that's really the dumbest thing I've ever heard. But
they hit you with the eat 9 times a day?
No, like, the reason why I'm gaining weight is because I don't eat enough. And I'm like, that's not consistent. And I have started to say that that's like not consistent with like the facts of living on earth. Like,
right.
Something from nothing. So, there are times when I have to turn it off because I'm like, okay, that is not mathematically possible. You cannot, matter can neither be created nor destroyed. Like,
right. No blinking.
Right. So, I have to dial that down sometimes because sometimes, and that was one of the things that I learned with the, it was like a relationships course that I took with the Scientology people, where sometimes you have to let someone be right enough to let you be right. Like, if you're so busy trying to convince them how wrong they are, then they have to defend their position, and they can't give you room to be right because you have to let them be a little right too.
Right. Wow. That's major. That's major. Wow.
Yeah. So, learning to understand that and to pivot off of wherever people are thinking. And if, even in this common discussion that I'm often having with people trying to find answers to how to, get to a healthier weight, where you say, okay, if assuming everything that you're saying is true, then what can we do differently to get a different result? Like, okay, that's fine. So either there's something that can be done to change your situation, or, if someone who has like really difficult to control diabetes and they're not really making changes, like, either you've done all you can do and there's no hope for you, and you may as well go ahead and dig a hole and get in the ground right now because, like, there's nothing you can do. You're doing the best you can do. Or there is something that could be done differently to improve your quality of life. Like, what are we going to think of like some 2 things that we're going to come up with that you're going to try to do differently and see what kind of results you get. Like, either you're saying you give up and you're going to die, or you haven't done all you can do and we're going to think of something. So I think that is that part of practice in medicine is the part that I have become better and better at, where I feel like sometimes I feel like I'm becoming gifted in that particular element of it, like the human part. Like, yeah, okay, you know what you know, and people, they test you. I mean, even my own relatives, they say you're not supposed to take care of your relatives, but sometimes they couldn't go anywhere else. And like, there are people, they had to test me first to see if they knew what I was doing or what I was talking about.
Right.
But that part where it's almost intuition, where you start to feel what's going on an emotional level and not just on a cognitive level, that takes experience. And I think that I don't even know how you can study up on that. Just like being, I guess maybe being open-minded and like being with all of your senses. I guess I don't even know what to say, but I remember there was like a medical student. I think she was one of the white students, and she was rotating through my practice. Because for a while they would like never send a black student. I'm like, it's really interesting. All of my patients chose this practice because I'm a black doctor. You gotta have some black students there, like, and you send me.
Right.
And I was like so glad to finally get one. I might have written her like 8 recommendation letters or something.
Right.
But she was like amazed because we had this patient come in. I mean, she was just off the wall, like just really over the top. And she couldn't believe, like, somehow whatever was happening where her energy was, she was way up here where I just like had to bring it down. And like she started to mirror back to me how I was mirroring to her that she needed to act.
Right.
Couldn't believe it. She was like, wow. It was like you were like a snake charmer or something.
Right.
And so I enjoy that part. It really makes me feel like it's a blessing, like I'm doing what I'm supposed to do when you have those little wins here and there. And then there's the hard days.
Yes, ma'am. Tariq?
Yeah, I just want to say before I go into another question, this has been a great show so far.
Yeah,
I'm learning so much.
I'm enjoying this.
Like this is awesome. This question actually goes back to patience and dealing with people. My wife right now, she's an EMT, emergency medical technician, for those who may not know what that is. And she often gets patients that mistake her or assume that she's a nurse. And something that I see just going on in medicine in general, just across the globe. Patients would assume that if they see a female in a medical setting, they just automatically assume she's a nurse. Now, you may not really see this so much now, but in the beginning of your medical career, did you kind of see that? Did you experience patients that may have assumed you're a nurse or something related to a nurse? And do you even see that now?
It's funny that you say that because I was at a medical conference at the American Academy of Family Physicians Conference, and I'm a part of this Facebook group called Local Medicine. It's like other Black female physicians from all over. And I met up with a couple of them who were there, and we were at the restaurant, and the waitress is like, oh, so what are you in town for? And we're like, oh, we're in town for a medical conference. And she's like, oh, so are you social workers? So you're saying nurse, like that, I mean, unusual question.
No offense to social workers at all.
The social worker,
but like, dang,
make you think that I'm a social worker. I don't really. A nurse would make more sense to me.
Right.
So I think that on the one hand, you can get offended, but if you look at the statistics, there is a reason why someone would not assume that I'm a physician or even you're a physician, because the likelihood is that you're not. That's just a statistic. Right. There are not that many. That's real. So, well, like, well, why couldn't I be the doctor? Okay, I could do that. Sometimes I take advantage of it when people come trying to sell me stuff at the office. If it's, a day when I don't have the white coat on, doctor's not here.
That's funny.
Funny. Or, sometimes people, like today, the lady, she had done her research. She'd already been on the website. So she walked in like, oh, are you Dr. Shabazz? And I'm like, okay, how does she know that?
Right.
Because no one would ever assume that I'm the doctor otherwise. So, and then it's I think another point that you mentioned about that is I've found that with my children, they take a lot of pride in what I do. And, you know, they respect it. They know the sacrifices of, you know, sometimes I'm not there all the time, or I'm not home. Especially Mustafa has been through all of those phases. Nyla's whole life, basically, I've been independent in my practice, where I have built in, or I just have control over my time in a sense. But Mustafa, he, I was in residency. I mean, there were times when, he had to be at someone else's house because I'm on call at night. And even when I've had to, just being an independent practice, when things aren't really flowing and you have to get a second job and, all of those types of things. But I visited his school one time, and he wants people to know I'm Dr. Shabazz. Like,
right.
Don't just be saying you just, Miss Shabazz, or
right.
And that's something that I remember that experience when he was at in middle school, where I was going to come on a trip, and the teacher's like, oh, Miss Shabazz, why don't this is Miss Shabazz, and I said, oh well, they can call me Dr. Shabazz. And
right.
other kids started whispering to Mustafa, like, your mother's a doctor, like, what kind of doctor, what's going on? And he he didn't even think it was that big of a deal until they were all like floored. But I decided I'm not walking into a school where there are Black children and they don't know I'm Dr. Shabazz. Like, it's just not going to happen because of two things. One, if you're in a school and this institution of learning doesn't respect educational attainment, then like we should just all leave now. Because if you don't respect it, then why should they respect it?
Right.
There are different schools where the culture is different. Like in Quaker schools, everybody is teacher this or teacher that. Like they just
right.
That's fine. But like otherwise, no, they need to know, because like I said before, their assumption is not incorrect, because the likelihood is that, you're not. We're so few in number that people need to see us. Like they need to know who we are. They need to be able to look at me and see themselves and know, like, oh yeah, I know, of course I can be a doctor, because there's Dr. Safiyya right there. So I think that's really important. Like I probably am more snobby with that because of my children and because of other Black children. Like I insist on it because they need to know.
Yes, ma'am.
Awesome. That is beautiful. When my wife sees this episode, she is going to love it. Because
I'm surprised she doesn't know. Like, she probably knows her already.
Oh yeah, she knows
right
about you and what you do. But unfortunately she's on call right now.
Right.
So she's not able to act on the episode right now. But when she does, I'm just gonna tell you now, your emails will probably be blown up with her trying to reach out to you and just saying just how much she is just looking forward to working with you in the future, because she does actually plan on going to medical school very soon. Well, this episode is called Ownership in Medicine.
Right.
And it's about your journey to becoming an owner of the Fountain Medical Association. So tell us about their journey so far.
Well, I always intended to have my own medical practice. I said that that's what I wanted to do. I was of that mindset, but you're not trained to be a business owner in medical school. You're trained to be a really good worker.
Right.
And I think that has been, the biggest professional development for me in this journey of having a medical practice, is just learning that aspect. And not all of it is in your control. When I started my practice, I was fortunate in that I still had a part-time position at Johnson & Johnson, or McNeil, which is part of Johnson & Johnson. I still had a part-time position with them. And that was a blessing because it gave me, some cushion financially while I transitioned and started to build up. But like, honestly, I remember I rented space not only on Tabor Road. I had like a desk and a chair and a computer, and I didn't have the foggiest idea of how to start a practice. Like I done some internet research, but I didn't know. And I like had to build, it would have been so much easier if I had come across an opportunity where something was already built, but such an opportunity didn't exist. And even to have been in a non-clinical field for 2 years because I had left a clinical position and I was working in industry for 2 years, I couldn't even get a job as a practicing physician, that scared the crap out of me. That might have been one of the things that pushed me to actually leave that position because, you know, they would be laying off people every year. And I'm like, that would be crazy. If after training, I could not work as a physician when, you know, they were laying off people every year. I remember they laid off one of the physicians. And I mean, there's still tons of opportunities. I think as a medical doctor, even now, my inbox and email gets blown up constantly for positions, both non-clinical and clinical positions, but that scared me. And, you know, I think my first patient was, besides my own family, was one of Brother Earl's babies.
Right.
And, you know, just building from there, and really that part went slower than I thought. I think that there are a lot of times when we have, just as a group or as a people, have set out to do things, you start things, and it doesn't last, or people don't know what to think of it. I think I had to overcome that hurdle for people to trust that this is a real thing. It's a real medical practice, like a real doctor.
Right,
you know,
right.
Like, okay, this is like a real doctor's. Yes, it's a real thing.
Right.
And that it's going to still be here. Like it's not going away tomorrow, because that's something that I can respect for people to feel like they don't want to get started, and you know, you're investing something so important as your health, and you don't want to deal with the fly by night thing. And it took a while before people that already knew I was a doctor. There were some people who were early adopters, but a lot of people were like late adopters, because they had to like see how it was going to go first. And you know, building your reputation in the community and just doing what you do and hoping that the word spreads, and you know, and people are satisfied. And I think too, being a pretty tight-knit community, because that's another challenge, being in Philly, where a lot of my patients are also social acquaintances, where it can be a little stressful with everybody text messaging me about their healthcare. I'm like,
I made sure to stop doing that.
Please stop doing that, because because I know a lot of my patients, you know.
Right.
And you know, you need that balance, where sometimes it's off. And you know how my husband is. Like, he came in there and told my staff, like, guess what? In here, she ain't got no family. Okay.
Right.
Anybody calling here is business. Okay. Mm-hmm. That's how we're dealing with this. And so that's a blessing. Sometimes it can be a challenge. People have to know that they can trust you with their private information, because you know, I can't be, you know, blabbing and gossiping about what's going on in the exam room. There's somebody in my yard. In the exam room, and then people like come back, like, you know, I'm not giving any information. And sometimes people get mad, like, she wouldn't give me any information about my own son. Like, no, sure not.
Right.
And, you know, I had a patient who was a stranger, you know, like I didn't know her. She came, and I mean, it was like a whole big deal, because she didn't understand how I could, you know, exclude her from some information having to do with her daughter. And I'm like, yeah, you know, that's really important. Most people don't give me a problem because they want their, you know, their loved one taken care of. But I have to, I'm legally obliged, like I could be sued
Is that even for adolescent children or children over the age of 18?
Oh, it's true for adolescents when it comes to any certain matters, like reproductive matters. Like, yeah, I don't know nothing. I ain't seen nothing.
Okay, I get it. Okay.
And the reason for that is because, I mean, they could be talking to somebody in the street that don't know what they're talking about, or they could talk to me and I know what I'm talking about, and I'm not going to lie to them or give them bad information. But at the same time, like by law, at least in Pennsylvania, there's certain things I can't talk to you about. Like, I think they're being abused or whatever, then I'm going to tell. But like, your child can go and get mental health care and you don't know about it. They can check themselves into a facility without telling you. But yeah, like I'm very serious about that because it's important to me to be able to do my job. Like, I can't do my job and people are lying to me. People do it all the time, but then I know when they're lying. But I can't do my job and people not trust me. And sometimes it takes time. But yeah, that's tricky. And the good thing is, like, at this point, my practice is so busy. Like, honestly, I don't even remember what you told me.
Right.
Like, you might be thinking that every time I sleep, I don't even, like, I'm not carrying around with me minute to minute, like everything somebody said.
So you mentioned, you just talking about, you said you're coming home cooking dinner. So kind of in the same vein of food, if you will, as you could probably attest to, a lot of people's issues stem from their dietary habits and choices. Yeah. So is there like a particular monumental book by a certain individual that you kind of pull a good amount of your, know-how from when dealing with patients? Could you kind of go into that a little bit?
Absolutely. I always say the basis of, my advice is in How to Eat to Live by Most Honorable Elijah Muhammad.
Yes, ma'am.
And when I first started this practice, I was probably like, I would come probably harder at people with that. Like, look, you just need to stop eating that much. Okay?
Right.
I did adjust with that because I realized, like, you know what? All right, maybe they're not going to just eat navy beans, but if I could just get them to eat beans, like, okay, it's this kind of bean, that kind of bean, but like, hey, can you eat beans? Like, do you like beans? Yeah, all right, let's start that. I mean, we have magnets made up, like how to make bean soup. And then, when I'm thinking about it, I'm looking, I'm like, I'm not sure if people are going to go from picking up a cheesesteak for dinner to soaking beans overnight and, doing it like that. But, like, I mean, if they could at least get things out of can, that might be a start or something.
Just introduce some more vegetables into their diet, Right.
Or, just right. I have like 3 rules I try to tell people to follow. Like, 1, when they get ready to eat something, does it need a label? Because if it needs a label, that's like your first clue that is processed. Because if you had, an apple, it's an apple. Right. Sometimes they put the little 4-digit code on it, but you know what it is just by looking at it. So if it needs a label, you look at the label and the list of what's in it is really long.
Hard to pronounce.
You start you start reading the label and it's stuff that sounds like chemicals. Like, all right, let's just start there. Try to make more choices where it doesn't need a label. If it has an ingredient list, it's short and it doesn't have stuff in it that sounds like chemicals. Start there.
Right.
And I think it makes a difference. I mean, that isn't, that's not necessarily how you lose weight. But if you had someone that was still, dealing with weight issues, but the quality of the food that they're eating is improving, it makes a difference. I mean, there are some people where they're doing a lot of things right and they still have problems. But honestly, for the most part, that doesn't happen. Like, when people are unhealthy and they're eating unhealthy foods, it shows. Like, I can tell the difference. And I don't have that many, I guess I couldn't even really extrapolate because I have so few non-Black patients, but I swear, like, the non-Black patients are healthier. And it's not because we're just inherently unhealthy. I think the way we eat is just not right. Like, you know that when you go to a party, like a family gathering, and you look around, it's like, gosh, it's really not anything here that is like, if you eat it, it's consistent with like good health.
Right.
So
you definitely think about it. I'm sure you can attest to. I don't know if I've ever seen an Asian person in a hospital.
oh, they go, but it's interesting. I'm actually in a I'm gonna call it an independent practice association, where we, kind of have some amount of ownership in this particular subgroup of patients. And there is another physician or group of physicians is Koreans, and their cost ratio, what we call the MCR, medical cost ratio, is so low, partly because there's a language barrier. So they tend to, they will go to that doctor and they will listen to what that doctor says, and they would rather stick with that doctor that's on an outpatient setting that knows how to speak their language, and avoid having to step out and go in the environment where, they have to have a translator and people might not understand what they're saying. But there are sick people in every community, but I think the type of sicknesses are different. I think sometimes we're sick for no good reason. Like, we don't have to be this sick. Like, there's no reason for us to be as sick as we are. And a lot of it too is the mental health aspect, which honestly, that's another thing that cross cultures, you see it. Like, people are struggling mentally a lot.
You posted something, I think it was you, it was an article recently. You talked about, what's the word? How Black people in America are, it's like it was a mental thing that there's a term for it, and you were like highlighting it when you posted. It's like really recent. I can't begin to go with it, but it was something to do with the general stress of like living in America or something like that.
Oh yeah, I think I kind of remember that, but not enough to talk about.
Right. It was profound though. I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, those stressors, it like always being on edge for and people have looked at that just in terms of the whole racism aspect of it, but it's not just that, because we have stress. Like, sometimes we cause each other stress in our environment, which I think that a lot of times is rooted in economic pressure, which kind of cascades down on a lot of other areas. That when people are on a survival level about everything, it's like their whole life is just getting by. Like, you have to have room for enjoyment. Like, I think it might have been one of Sister Jill's children or something. It's like, oh, vacation is overrated. Like, for me, like, I take vacation like medicine, because I know I have to cycle down. Like, you need that. And but some people, they don't ever get a break from it. Like, I have a patient, she has had a stroke, she's had a heart attack, she has had breast cancer, and she is so stressed all the time because where she lives, they're shooting each other constantly. If she's outside, she's dodging bullets. If she's inside, she might be dodging bullets. And it's so stressful. Like, it's a wonder this woman has gotten, she's over 70 years old, but like, it's a wonder she's gotten to be that old because of the she's living under. And I don't know. I don't have a way to change that part of things for people, but I feel like that's kind of one of the things that I think is a good thing. On the one hand, sometimes I feel a little uneasy, like, oh, you move your practice to, a nice neighborhood. Like, that made me cringe a little bit. Like, even in the article, the Chronicle article that Brother Michael wrote, where it's like, move to an affluent area, then it's like, oh, that makes it sound like I'm not helping people or whatever. But like, honestly, people need to step out of their environment sometimes.
Right.
I had a patient yesterday, he was like, I just like coming here. Like, it's so nice just to come. Like, I like to see the green stuff. I like
right. All that plays into people's health.
Right.
And it's conducive to your practice, much more than where you were. Not that you didn't help people where you were, but it's like you can speak to the environment.
Right.
Like you start feeling better walking in there. Like, you know, right.
And that's what people say. Like the patient, he was like, one time, we were in a stairwell in the other place and there were people in the stairwell shooting up. Like I had no idea. I knew people would be urinating and defecating.
Right.
But like walking up on people shooting up, like I hadn't seen that. I didn't know my patient saw that.
Right.
But that I feel like that's a good thing for people to, even if you got to go back there, step out for a minute. We talking about your health right now. Musa, we relaxing right now. Have some herbs.
Yes.
Smell some aromatherapy. We got aromatherapy here.
That's right. Yes, ma'am. Tariq, before I go back to you, this last question. So being a professional woman, I'm sure you've kind of talked about this or thought about this, and I'm paraphrasing. The Honorable Minister Farrakhan talks about how the home is a woman's base, not necessarily her place. And I'm not sure if the messenger said that too, but how do you, being in the practice or the endeavors and profession that you're in, how do you reconcile that statement and how has it applied to your life?
I think I would say it is, some aspects of that are definitely a challenge because you can't be two places at one time.
Right.
And so I feel like when things aren't as I know that like my home environment, even the physical environment of my home, isn't exactly what I want it to be. And I know that that's like a handicap in some ways, but then I also accept for myself that you can't be two places at one time, and you can't, like, you can do it all, but you can't do it all at once.
Right.
That's what someone told me a while ago, which is probably a common phrase, but I think that recognizing that and kind of figuring out those things that you really value that you must do yourself. And then those things that must be done, but then realizing like that doesn't mean it has to be done by you. So like, for instance, my family, we figured out that if we're both hitting the door at 6:30, most days, we value trying to make sure that we are having a healthy dinner, but we don't necessarily value being that person that's like washing or folding our own laundry. So it's worth it to us to go drop it off and let the people wash it, fold it. Even, my husband is very like finance conscious or
finance conscious. I like
whatever you want to say that doesn't sound offensive. But he recognizes that, okay, if you calculate the time it would take for us to not just wash the clothes, because I actually enjoy washing clothes, but it takes a really long time to fold them. And he's like, wow, look, they make them all into perfect squares. Like, this is worth it. So, I mean, for me to take 8 hours of laundry and drop it off and pick it back at some later time, like, okay, that's where you have to make, I guess, compromises.
Right.
Because things have to get taken care of, but all of those things I don't necessarily value as much to personally do myself. And not everybody feels that way. And, I think that when you have a calling, which I feel like I do, like what I'm doing, I know this is what I'm supposed to do, because times when I really don't feel like doing it or I feel like quitting, then something happens to make me realize, like, yeah, this is, tag you're it. Like, this is what you have to do.
Right.
And, that can be a challenge. People, I know in human nature, people judge, like I know people judge me sometimes, like, because my daughter's hair might be sticking up, or, you know, people used to tease me and Mustafa's hair would be cut all the time, or, you know, just different things, or that people may see it one way and have a judgmental approach to it, but like I have to recognize like this is what works for our life, and to have that balance. Like you can't be all one thing and none of the other. And I don't personally consider that success. You know, I have a lot of I think probably more than probably virtual friends. I don't even know. I don't necessarily know all of these women personally, but you know, there are some people who are like super homemakers, and then others who are like really, that's just not them.
Right,
and
right.
they're not pressed about it. Or and then there are other people who would want to have a family life, and you know, for whatever reason that hasn't happened for them, and that can be a struggle for some people. So I feel blessed to have a pretty balanced life. You know, I don't I don't miss any meals unless I intend to. And I don't need the fanciest things. So then I dial down my professional aspirations because my family life or my home life is important to me. But my professional life is important to me. And my family understands that and values it and respects it. I mean, even with my husband, I think not everybody would be as generous with sharing their wife with the community as he is, because everybody sacrifices. You know what I mean? When you have a life that's in a way like a servant, then everybody sacrifices. Like everybody gives up a little something. And I honor my family for that, my children, my husband. I really am grateful for that. And I think they all recognize too that they've been blessed as a result. Like the sacrifices that they make themselves or that we make as a family, like they see that we get blessed for it. Like it's okay. Like it all works out.
Yes, ma'am. Tariq?
Well, I just want to say we're actually coming up to the conclusion of the show. This has been a very beautiful show. I always like to tell those who I share information about OMS TV with, I usually tell them that this is not a talk show, that this is an information show and a dialogue about whatever it is that our guest currently does in life and how they're contributing to the community. So I want to thank you, Dr. Safiyya, for joining us today, and we pray that you can join us again. One of the final questions that I have, a lot young Black women who are watching this, or just young people in general, what would you say to them if they are interested or if they want to pursue a career in medicine?
Well, I would say the younger the person is that I'm speaking with, the better chance they have, because they have more time to start to set things in motion. I always would say you don't like roll over in bed one day and be like, oh yeah, I'm going to go to med school. Like it doesn't work like that. Like there's checkpoints. I think I used Brother Jabril and like his mother and family as an example at different times. Like she decided what she was going to do or the outcome that she was looking for. And then very early you start to work on preparing that outcome, And I think for someone that wants to be or is considering a career in medicine, like you decide that, and then you have to start figuring out, well, what are the steps? How are you going to get from where you are? Now, if you are already all the way down the line, then, it's definitely more challenging to say, well, I want to be a doctor when you didn't have the elementary school, middle school, high school, college preparation that would even, make you be able to function at the next level. Like we have a skip gradient. Like you have to, the earlier on you can start to build the foundation, the better. because I don't even think I had the foundation that many of my classmates had starting medical school. I mean, it was like another white coat in the family, another white coat in the family. Like that wasn't my situation at all. Where so finding mentors, really just trying to get the best education that you can and perform at the highest level. Like, you know, you don't want to be mediocre, or, you know, I think it's not realistic to expect to be mediocre and to be successful in a highly competitive field that requires a lot from you cognitively. Like, it's a thinking job. Like I tell my staff sometimes, like, I don't sell widgets. Like, I think for a living. Like, this is what my vocation is. Like, this is what I'm selling. I'm selling my ability to think. And you know, critical thinking skills and, you know, relationships. I think that's something that I probably didn't take advantage of enough. That is so important. Like, if I guess that would be a really tangible thing for anyone, male or female, who wants to pursue any career. Like, you have to form relationships and cultivate those relationships. So meeting someone is good, but it really isn't enough. Like, figure out how you can, like, have ongoing relationships with people and, you know, be in the environment or around the people who are doing the things that you want to do or headed in the direction that you're trying to go. Like, that's really important. Like, human resources are some of the most important ones. Like, the people you know, the things that are in their brains, and just a little nugget might drop accidentally. Like, people tell me that sometimes, where I don't even remember saying some of the things that people attribute to me. Now, sometimes I'm like, I don't know if I said that, but if it's good, then I'm like, okay.
Right.
You know, people, something that might be natural to someone that is already doing the thing that you're trying to do, it might rub off on you, or you might catch on to it just by being in their company, whether that's live in person or just, you know, even virtual. Like, I've learned so much from the group of women that I've been able to get to know virtually in this Facebook group. I mean, it's amazing. Like, I really never considered that you could just go to another country. Like, there's this sister, she's an obstetrician in Australia. She's not coming back to the United States. Like, she's gone. And that is something that really wasn't even something that I thought about as a real possibility. Not that I want to do that, but like, wow, just to know that you could, and there's someone that if I decided to do that, I could reach out to and get their expertise. Or if I decided to really do anything, like, I had a friend that wanted a second opinion about their breast cancer diagnosis, and I could pick up the phone and be like, hey, you know, what about this? Or, you know, can you see this person? And that's a blessing, and that's something that I haven't always been good at. And like, my sister is really good at it. Like, she knows everybody.
Right.
And so that would be a skill that is useful to anyone to develop.
Awesome.
Beautiful. Well, once again, thank you so much, sis, for joining the show this evening.
That's right. Yes.
Are there any final? Yes, sir. Are there any final things you'd like to say to the listening audience about what you do, and also how can those who are watching contact you and learn more about Fountain Medical Associates in Philadelphia? How can they take part in your practice?
Well, our practice website is fountainmedonline.com. And we do have I need a young person to help me with my social media for the practice at Fountain Med.
Say less.
Maybe just the website for is probably, you know, give people most of the information they need about the practice. And I would say that, you know, there's so much work that needs to be done. Like, you don't have to do all of it, but if you can figure out what your little slice is and try to make a difference with some part of it, then that's great. Like, we need it all. There's so much work to be done. And I would say, particularly in the field of medicine, like, my biggest challenge right now is that I'm here by myself. Like, I'm the only provider here. I'm the only physician here. And I see all the patients. There are too many people calling that I can't see all of them. And there's not enough people who have that entrepreneurial mindset who would want to, have their income at risk and have independence that goes along with that, but, also have any part of their income at risk. I haven't found anyone who is willing to do that. And, it's hard to build something from scratch, but like, hey, it's already built. Like, it's already built. Like, I just need help, like somebody to help me see all these patients, help me think. Like, so yeah, if there are people who are thinking about pursuing a career in primary care, like, hey, we need you, like, in general and like in specific, that'd be great. I need help. So.
I know quite a few doctors that would love to help you and be there with you. I actually know a lot of patients too that would love your services. You say you do satellite as well, right?
Telemedicine, mostly it's for people who are already my patients. But I mean, if there are people who are in Pennsylvania, I'm licensed in the state of Pennsylvania. I'm not licensed in all 50 states. And that's been something, like, sometimes people want my opinion about stuff where they might not understand, like, that's me giving medical advice, and I'm only licensed to practice in Pennsylvania and not like all 50 states, which is something that I've considered doing. I mean, that's a whole other area. There's this other sister that I met for the same group, and she has this road network of telemedicine physicians where there's people all over the country who do telemedicine, and so yeah, that's something we need in the nation probably too. Like, we all need to have multiple state licenses.
Right.
We have one.
Is that to say, like, so if I like ask you a question at the office, then I go on travel to like San Diego, I can't ask you that same question?
No, well, I don't even know what the law is, but I decided in my head, like, our relationship is a Pennsylvania relationship, so like,
okay. That's good to know.
But like, having a telemedicine, like, someone, they're not my patient, they've never been here, and they actually are in Wisconsin, like,
right.
Yeah, that's not really allowed unless I'm licensed to practice medicine in the state of Wisconsin. So yeah, but there's so much to learn about that, and that's a developing field. Like, there's more that can be done about that. That's probably a technical field. That might be a good person to bring on your thing. I don't know.
Oh, absolutely. And definitely, we could definitely help you out with the media side of things.
Yeah.
Just with Original Man Scientific, what the biggest thing with being a research and development company, budding and growing, assisting in all things technical that we can, utilizing our staff, utilizing our expertise to do things on the media side and product development and app development. So we're really growing to be able to service the community in those various aspects. So we definitely can talk about that more. But I know Tariq gave it definitely more to me. Like, I'm good at like the promotionary aspect of social media, like trying to put my name in like just like all that stuff. But in terms of doing things, designing, like, it's nothing. I feel like it's nothing he can't do. Like, it's like
logo. I'm like,
it's like
wait a minute.
I have my limits. Can't figure out how to do. Like, So.
Did you do Brother Tariq? Did you make that logo, like with the atom and the DNA? Wow.
Yes, man. Well, let me put it this. It was my vision. Brother I know who's a graphic designer just put it on paper. But yes, man, it was definitely my design.
Okay, awesome.
Right.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it. You know, I appreciate kind of drawing me into the conversation too, because sometimes like it's easy to get head down really into what I'm doing, and easy for me to forget that, like, I don't know, people might benefit from something.
Absolutely.
That's a value.
This is a show long time in the making, and one of the things I think we have to be cognizant of being partners is that we have a working network. You mentioned networking, and we have people around us that not only could use the promotionary avenue, but also have so much value to give. And there are people listening to us that could benefit from you. So, like, definitely, thank you for being on the show, taking time out of your busy schedule to do this. Very appreciative, and look forward to maybe doing a part 2 and just having you in some other vein.
Yeah, or if people have like specific questions that might be helpful. And then I position myself so that you can see this in the background where one of the sits passed away. My favorite part at the top is like, qualify yourself.
Right.
So I'm like, whatever it is you're gonna do, like, qualify yourself and start to work at it. So, all right, well, keep up the good work.
Awesome.
Thank you. Same to you, Auntie.
All right. Alaikum.
Alaikum salam.
All right, Jabril.
All right. So, yeah, I'm still here cracking. So thank you, everyone, for listening and watching. To be more exact, this has been another installment of the STEM Files / Biz Files. So we had the business aspect, we had the STEM aspect. We learned so much from, like, why Dr. Safiyya decided to be a primary care physician, her background in engineering, the concept of networking, some trepidation she had along the way. So really understanding that when you want to do something and when you want to do something of value, there's a difficulty factor attached to it. But when you really get over that hump and are able to go from point A to point B and really see it through, you're able to add value to other people's lives. So with that, definitely smash the like button, share the video with your friends, family, colleagues, associates, all those people. Follow us on all of our social media at omansci_. That's at OMANSCI_, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Also on IG at OMS_TV. And also subscribe to our YouTube channel, OMS TV. And for general information on Original Man Scientific, that's www.omansci.com, www.omansci.com. Tariq, anything more?
Yes, this is our, I think, 12th edition of the STEM Files since moving to OMS TV. It doesn't seem like that many, but it's been a lot.
Yep.
Our next guest is Sunday, August 12th. None other than Dr. Wesley Muhammad, very accomplished PhD. He will be talking about the science of pretty much everything. There's nothing that this brother can't touch.
Right.
But definitely tune in Sunday, August 12th at the same time, 7 p.m. Eastern Time. That is our next show. And once again, I am your host, Drake Muhammad, a.k.a. Magna Cardiac, Chairman and Chief Science Officer of Original Man Scientific. Jabril?
Yes. Peace and blessings again, everyone. Jabril Muhammad, a.k.a. Jabrilliant Engineer, actually Vice Chairman of Original Man Scientific. Didn't mention that because titles don't really matter all that much, but it's good to throw in. Well, and also materials engineer working in government sector. So.
Again, thank you, family, for joining us. This has been another cracking open of the STEM Files on OMS TV. Peace.
That's right. Peace.